Hello everyone. Welcome back to the refresher session of Modern JavaScript. We will start our session with a question called, what exactly are ES modules? So guys, ES modules are the official way to structure JavaScript code. Think of them as building blocks. They allow us to break down our code into smaller, more manageable pieces. This makes our code easier to understand, reuse, and maintain. ES module was introduced in ES 2015, also called as ES 6. Next, let's understand why should we care about ES modules. ES modules provides improved code organization, enhanced reusability, better maintainability, and improved performance. Next, we have to understand named exports versus default exports, but we have to understand what actually these exports are. So guys, JavaScript's ES6 modules allow developers to organize code into reusable files. The two primary ways to export and import functionalities in JavaScript modules are named exports and default exports. To understand it better, let's jump into the Visual Studio Code and understand via an example. We are into the Visual Studio Code and let's set up the project to demonstrate named versus default export. First, we will look into name export, then later we will see default export. So first, let's create two files called module.js and main.js. Let's write code to module.js. Here I will use named exports. Named exports let you export multiple variables, functions, or classes from a module. The exports must be explicitly named, and when importing them, the names must match exactly. For this example, I have exported 3 constants, 2 functions, and 1 numeric value. This module can be imported and used in main.js JavaScript files. So let's import these name export into our main.js file. Here I am demonstrating how to import and use the exported constants from the module.js file. The import statement at the beginning of the file brings in the Greek, farewell, and pi exports from module.js. This allows the current file to utilize these constants as if they were defined within it. Now let's run it. To run it, open terminal and go inside the folder and type node main.js. And you will notice that it throws error. The error occurs because node.js does not support ES6 module syntax, import-export, by default. You can resolve this by either using CommonJS syntax or enabling ES6 modules in node.js. First, let's look into CommonJS syntax. So how to do that, let's look into that. To apply the CommonJS syntax, let's go to module.js file and remove all the export from the const statement. Then at last write module.exports and specify all the functions and const variable which you want to export and then save it. We are done with the changes for module.js file for export. Now let's go to main.js file to apply the CommonJS syntax for import. Now let's remove the import and write const and specify the same name of function which you want to import inside the curly braces, then put equal to and write require keyword with file name from where you are importing these functions. Now let's run it. And you will notice that we got the output. This is how we resolve the issue with CommonJS syntax. Next, let's resolve it with ES6 syntax. With ES6 syntax, let's revert back the original code for module.js file as well as main.js file. Save it. Now let's change the extension from JS to MJS for both the files. That's it, we are done. Now let's run it and test it. It throws error. Oh, that is because I have executed node main.js. Which is wrong. Instead, we need to write node main.mjs, and you will notice that we got the same output. So guys, we saw the named export way of managing your code. This is very useful when you want to export multiple values or functionalities from module. Now let's look into default export. Default exports allow you to export a single value or functionality from a module. The default export does not require a specific name during import, and you can name it anything when importing. Let's create a simple arrow function to do multiplication of 2 number and export it as default. Now let's import it. To import, we need go to main.mjs file and import it separately outside the curly braces. Then call the multiple function and print the output in console. Now let's run it. and you will see that it returned the output. For default export, you must remember some key points. A module can have only one default export. You don't need to know the exact name of the exported value when importing. You can name it whatever you want. Let's understand with an example. We have created a function to multiple and that we exported as default export, and now here we imported with same name. But it is not mandatory you can call it with any name. Like I will change it from multiple to multiple function. Let's run it again. And here you will notice that it worked without any error. So guys, we are done with this session. In the next session, we will learn about declaring variable in modern JavaScript. On this note, I am stopping over here. See you in the next session.